Hey guys, it's Mr. Burns here, coming at you from A110 as usual. We are going to talk here about the Unit 4 vocabulary. It's going to be a little bit different this next couple weeks here. We got Unit 4. Unit 4 and Unit 5 are kind of two shorter units, so we're going to combine them into one unit test. You'll have a Unit 4 quiz on this set of vocabulary and some of the content we learned about. Then you'll have a quiz. We'll do most of our learning through the DBQ that we're going to do after winter break on the U.S. Constitution and these concepts. Then Unit 5, we're going to talk about the legislative branch. We'll have a quiz there, and then we'll have a unit test on Unit 4 and 5 combined. Okay, and we'll do the same thing coming up with Unit 6 and 7, the executive and judicial branches. We'll have a quiz for each one, and we'll combine those into one test. All right, so you should have handout number 2 in front of you. You're going to take down the vocab words. Remember that you write in the definition now, and then for homework by the due date, which is posted in class, you'll have a quiz that day. You're going to do the your definition or example columns and the colored picture visual columns. Make sure you use something different from the pictures that I used and the examples I use. All right, so let's start here. Our first definition, checks and balances. The part that's written in black is already written for you. You just have to add the red section to the definition here. So checks and balances is where the three branches kind of work together, and one branch is taking action, and then one of the other two branches, or both of them in some cases, have the ability to either approve that action or they have the ability to block or cancel that action depending on what's going on. So one example would be when the legislative branch creates a law, the president must sign the law to approve it. So the president, or he could veto it, he could cancel it, he could say no. All right? So what's going on there is the legislative branch is acting, and the executive branch is checking or canceling that action. So that would be executive checking the legislative. The judicial branch could check that lawmaking process as well by declaring the law unconstitutional. In other words, it violates the Constitution. Okay. All right. So federalism is our next word, and we're going to talk a lot about this term. Basically, federalism is this idea that our government is divided into national and state governments, and some powers are given to the national government, and some are reserved or set aside to the states. And then the states can determine what they want to provide local governments with certain powers. So national, state, local is federalism. So we're going to do something called a 9-box chart, which actually has more than 9 boxes. But we call it a 9-box chart because there's 3 branches and there's 3 levels of government. So 3 times 3 is 9. And we're going to talk about how federalism and how our government is organized with the federal system. All right, we got separation of powers. Again, you're only writing what's in red. And then there's just the division of power into 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. Remember from our last unit, we talked about how the Articles of Confederation only had 1 branch, and then with our new government and the Constitution, we have 3 branches. Legislative branch makes laws, executive branch enforces laws, judicial branch interprets laws. And we're going to talk about those 3 groups coming up here through the winter months, okay? And you're going to spend 2 to 3 weeks on each one, learning about the different groups and the different responsibilities and the different powers that they have, and some more detailed information than you probably ever known before about those. All right, we got express powers. Is our next term. There's going to be 5 different types of powers, and in the near future we'll talk about examples of each of these. But express powers are things that are listed in the Constitution directly, and they are powers that the national government has. So not our state or local governments, but the national government has this power, which means the states must follow it, right? Because the national level of government is going to be supreme. All right. On the next page, you got implied powers. These are also powers that are given to the national government, but they're not necessarily directly stated. They're implied. And a lot of these are going to come about because of things that happen in the future, new technologies or new improvements that are made, things that the Founding Fathers would have never thought of because they had no clue what they were thinking of. But they knew that our government had to stretch and our government had to change. It was a living, breathing document. So they knew that in the future that things would be different. So they said we have to have a way to have Congress and have our government be able to stretch its powers. So this idea, this elastic clause or the necessary and proper clause is what it's really called, allows Congress to stretch its powers, creating an air force. They didn't have airplanes back then, back when the Constitution was written. Now we do. So we create an air force, we add it to our military. Okay, that's a good example. All right, we got reserved powers. Reserved means, think about a reservation at a restaurant. You make a reservation, you set a table aside for yourself. Well, reserved powers are powers that are set aside or saved and given to the state governments and the people. And a lot of these have to do with education and protecting the environment and establishing local governments, things of that nature, where it's something that you might see different from state to state, issuing licenses. Hunting license, fishing license, driving license, right? All driver's licenses, all these things. It's different from state to state. States give this power. I moved from New York to Virginia, and a lot of things are a little different. Traffic laws and things of that nature. Okay. Concurrent are powers. If you take Spanish, con means with. Okay, so that's one way to remember that these are shared powers that the national government and state governments both do. They might do it a little differently, but we have laws that are applicable to our whole country or to just Virginia. We pay taxes at the federal or national level and the state level and local government as well. Prisons are run, there's federal prisons, there's state prisons. Roads, there's national roads like Interstate 95, for example. Then there's roads that are like state roads, like Braddock Road. And then there's roads that are just in the county, like the Fairfax County Parkway. Okay, and it depends on where this road is and how big it is and how long it is to determine who has that power. But they share the power because they're both responsible for it. All right, and the last one is the easiest one, denied powers, things that you are not allowed to do. Okay, we can't have titles of nobility. We can't have religious leaders leading our government, like the Pope. We can't have slavery and things like that. We can't deny people their voting rights. Based on our certain amendments in our Constitution. These are things that are prohibited, not allowed. Okay? All right, 8 words. That's it. What you need to know is those 3 first terms. You need to know the difference between all those and how to separate those. The 5 powers, you need to know the definitions. We'll talk about examples in class and be able to identify some examples based on a list, maybe creating a title for a list. And these concepts are going to lead into the 3 branches. All right, and we're going to really get into them on the DBQ that we do this unit. So it's really important that you pay attention to this vocab and review this if you need to. All right, Mr. Burns signing out. Enjoy. Take care.